murderer who killed the two young children, a white man. Will you listen to what I'm saying? I literally said the broken nuclear family, both black families and white families. That murderer.
Nina Turner went on Chris Cuomo's show on NewsNation to engage in a heated debate with far-right MAGA commentator Liz Wheeler. The topic was crime in the United States and crime based on race. We're going to see clips from this Chris Cuomo show with Nina Turner and Liz Wheeler. I will share my thoughts on this as well. Let's get into it together.
Let's ask two better minds. Conservative podcaster Liz Wheeler and former Ohio Democratic State Senator Nina Turner. Now, again, Liz, NewsNation is not on the naughty list, okay? We've been covering the story, not the way or for the reasons that I see a lot in your universe covering it. But what do you believe the fix is here?
Well, first, Chris, thanks for having me on the show. Let's talk about why this has become such a hot button topic and why you use the word weaponized. I think it is a hot button topic because it demonstrates how politics have led to this situation. This was not an arbitrary crime. This was not a crime that was inevitable. It's not like Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says you can expect crime in big cities. No, I don't accept that. The majority of the American people don't accept that. What we saw here in this gruesome, heinous murder of this beautiful, innocent Ukrainian war refugee by this deranged black man, we saw the Democrat Party's policies in action. In the state of North Carolina in 2020, in June of 2020, the governor, Roy Cooper, signed an executive order 145, called Racial Equity in Criminal Justice Task Force. It established a task force with the intent of reducing the percentage of black men who are incarcerated compared to the percentage of white men who are incarcerated. This is not how you fix a problem. This is nothing but racialism that results in black people who commit crimes being let off easy in order to tamper with the statistics and make it seem like there's less of a disproportionate difference between the number of black men in prison and the number of white men in prison.
You do know, not to be in like a numbers festival, and I want to bring in Nina, but as a cultural dynamic, black men and white men are arrested at about the same rates, but then the rate of black arrests go up when you get into certain types of crimes. The percentage of people who get prosecuted is disproportionate in terms of black people, specifically young men, and the amount of people who go to prison and do time is disproportionate. But I don't think that's what this is about. I think this is about who wants to see what the problem is and what the right fix is. And the fix I'm hearing from you guys, Liz, is to kill this guy and punish the judge.
No, I don't believe in the death penalty. No, don't put words in my mouth. I don't believe in the death penalty. What I believe in is I believe in justice.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm repeating what's been said by the predominance of people on the right. Yeah, the MAGA world is saying kill this guy. It's all over the place.
Let me explain the problem to you. The problem is that we do have systemic racism in our criminal justice system. I know that's something the left often says, and it's true, not in the way that the left tries to claim. It's true because there's systemic racism against white people in the criminal justice system. This murderer, yes, he had schizophrenia. That doesn't take away from the fact that he committed a gruesome, grisly murder that we watched before our very eyes.
Yeah.
This man was let off. I mean, he was arrested 14 times. And the example you gave in the monologue was the one time he abused calling 911.
It was the most recent arrest. It was the most recent
one, but you neglected to mention all the other times, his robberies and his assault of females.
I know, but Liz, if you're going to attack the judge for what she did, I'll bring you in, Nina. But hold on, Liz. If you're going to attack the judge,
want to prosecute him.
No, here's why. The most recent one was a misdemeanor 911 call where he was evidencing being crazy. You're going after the wrong judge. You should have gone after the judge before him, after he got out for the burglary and he assaulted his sister. That judge should be the one who's reviewed. I think they're using this one because it's a black female.
It's the Democratic Party at large that needs to be held accountable for their restorative justice policies. It is the fact of the matter is black people make up 13% of our population here in the United States, and yet they make up 50% of murder convictions in our country. There is a disproportionate difference in the number.
Let me finish my point. Well, Liz, you've made a bunch of points. Let me bring her in, and then I'll come back to you. Nina, weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, First of all, it's an immense tragedy what happened to Zaruska. And anybody who would say that it wasn't, that could have been any of us. But to racialize this manner in the way that my colleague is doing is absolutely wrong. Your monologue, Chris, was spot on. This is a systemic failure for all of us. The fact that we do not treat mental health, and not all people who have mental health challenges turn violent.
True.
But this is about how we spend money in this country when it comes to people who have these types of propensities. The reason why we can laser focus on Brown in terms of mental health is based on what his mother said, based on the 911 call. And this was not a hate crime. We can racialize it if it was a hate crime, but this is not determined to be a hate crime. And the fact that Black men are overrepresented in the prison system in the United States of America is a problem. That does not mean that we cannot deal with Brown. We are taking from, in this conversation, cheapening what happened to this young woman. And she was pretty and she was white. If she was ugly and white, would her life not matter just as much? This makes absolutely no sense, Chris. I am enraged by it. Do we let most mass murders are white men? Do we label and say that we want to lock up and kill all white men in the same manner that some on the extreme left and extreme right are betraying this? And Liz, you and I should have a sidebar conversation about this, because the way that this is being framed, and I'm open to it, is not the right framing. Chris, you are on it. Yes, he should be punished for this crime. The family should be lifted up. It should not be politicized in the way that it is being politicized. The system failed Zaruska, and the system failed all of us. And there is a way to get the fix, and justice will prevail in this case. Hopefully, this man did something heinous. He has the answer to this. Chris, my final point.
I want to stop here just for one moment before Nina Turner gets to her final point. And what I want to say is two things. So Liz Wheeler trying to act like there's some kind of bias against white people in the judicial system is absolutely insane. It took me 3 seconds to do a Google search, and I found this line. In the federal system, Black citizens have been 20 times more likely than white citizens to be sentenced to life without parole for nonviolent crimes. Now, if that's not a bias against Black people, when Liz Wheeler is claiming that the bias is against white people, I don't know what is. And in terms of what Nina Turner is saying here, what we see from these far-right MAGA types like Liz Wheeler, everything is about punishment. Nothing is ever about trying to get to the root causes of crime. In this case, from what we know about this case, this seems like this was a mental health issue with this guy. But MAGA and Republicans and these commentators on the right, like Liz Wheeler, don't want to do anything about mental health. Today, Charlie Kirk was killed, and I'm going to do a separate video about that. Will we be able to have an honest conversation about guns? No. Will we be, if we find out that the person who did the shooting was somebody with mental health issues, will there be any kind of a serious conversation about what we do about mental health in our country, trying to get more people help who have mental health issues so these kinds of violent crimes, these shootings don't happen on quite the level that they happen in the United States? No, because Republicans and MAGA people, one and the same, like Liz Wheeler, will always fight against that. The answer is always build more prisons. The answer is never, let's have more mental health facilities and pay more mental health professionals to try to deal with problems that people have in that they could harm themselves or others to try to keep it from happening rather than punishing the people later.
Who was a paranoid schizophrenic. He killed his father, who was sitting in his favorite chair after work, blew his brains out and then hunted down my aunt in their house and killed her too. The treatment that he needed as an adult, because it's hard to get, and it should be hard. We shouldn't just be able to say anybody needs to be put away, but at the same time, to find the balance and the compassion. Any Democrat that is using this to politicize this is wrong. Any Republican who is doing that is wrong. Chris, you are right on. What is the fix?
Liz, I'm going to give you the last word on this with one, I believe, prediction. This guy's not going to stay on trial. He's going to be found not competent. So forget about the death penalty. He's not going to stay on trial. He's not competent for trial. The Constitution is very clear on it. I don't think there's any chance he passes a competency exam. So what do you want to see in order to bring events like this to a minimum?
I want to see two things. I want to see critical race theory, also known as racial equity in criminal justice, removed from our justice system. There are 23 states plus the District of Columbia in the United States that have such initiatives. You know, the word equity does not mean equality. It means forcing an equal outcome. So a racial equity in criminal justice initiative means forcing an equal percentage of black people and white people based on the color of their skin. That's not justice, that's injustice.
No, but that also doesn't happen anywhere. Nobody does ratios of race in terms of who goes to jail.
That's exactly why people are so outraged by this.
Chris. It's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
The reason people are so outraged by this is because you're gaslighting the American public. You're gaslighting the public, telling us that this is not injustice.
You find me a jurisdiction. Liz, I know people say it. I know people argue for it. I totally get what you're saying. But that is not the practice. You find me a single jurisdiction in any major population center where they decide who goes to judge. They decide. Hold on a second.
Declining to prosecute based on the color of the person's skin. That's exactly
there's
what
no
racial
question that has happened.
Part of your question.
But nobody has adjusted their policy so that when they're deciding who goes to jail, they make sure that the racial percentages are balanced out. That is nowhere. It would never be constitutional.
That's the intent of a
racial equity. There's a difference between what people want and what happens.
It's not.
I get it, Liz.
And the second part of your question was, what do we want to do to fix this? The second part, and this is the part that I find very interesting, because when people say, you know, the system is broken, yeah, the system is broken, and the system did fail to Carlos Brown, just like it failed Irina Zarutska. No one's denying that. But what's not being discussed is why young black men are committing higher numbers of crime. And the answer to that is not moving around dollars. It's not the way government spends. It's not more welfare programs or restorative justice pipelines. The answer to that lies in the brokenness.
Are white men who are mainly the mass murderers in this country? Are you calling out
to them too? Actually,
did you care about if Buffalo, New York,
that too,
black people were gunned down while they were shopping? Did you care about what happened to Mother Emanuel Church? See, Chris,
it actually does apply.
Hold on. One at a time. Nina, go ahead.
The difference between Liz and I.
Hold on, Liz. Go ahead.
Okay, the difference is that I'm not here caping for a political party or an ideology.
Right.
What I am saying that happened to that young woman is wrong, and I don't care what her racial or ethnic identity is. I am also saying that we as a nation must care about the fix and stop racializing where it should not be. If you want to talk about the real history of racial hatred and degradation in this country, then we can do that dance, Liz. But this is not the time to do that dance, because we are, again, cheapening and taking away from what happened to her and how we help people who are in mental health crisis, not letting anybody off the hook for cold-blooded murder.
You know what,
Chris, the second part of your question,
go ahead, Liz, give me a quick take on the second part. What's the fix?
The second part is the brokenness of the nuclear family, the brokenness of the black family, the fact that black fathers are absent, that young black men turn to drugs and gangs.
How dare
you? And by the way,
the family, I think the family in general you can point to. I don't know that one race over the other works.
This is also true for the murderer who killed the two young children, a white man. Will you listen to what I'm saying? I literally said the broken nuclear family, both black families and white families. That murderer.
You singled out black families, but if you're saying all families, it's a different point.
It's especially evident in the Black community, but it is also true that when fathers are absent, that young men are more likely to commit.
I'll put you guys on a text thread.
Put us together.
I'll put you.
If you're open to that, Liz, I'm open to it.
I'll put you together. Liz is open to conversation.
Let's do it.
Nina's open to conversation. That's why we're all here. It's not an easy conversation to have, but it's an important conversation to have. We'll keep having it.
So again, like I was saying at the beginning with Liz Wheeler, she talks about, you're not going to fix this with welfare. You're not going to fix this with blah, 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 blah. And this is what we always get from the right. Well, you can't fix problems with money. How are you going to reduce any of these problems in the country without money? How do you create a scenario in which people in disadvantaged communities who could improve their lives if they could go to college, but they don't have the money, and Liz Wheeler and the rest of MAGA doesn't want to provide any scholarship money or student loan money or forgiveness of student loans so that they can go and get an education. They don't ever want to do that. This all is just going to come from charity somehow. And again, this idea of critical race theory in the courts. So like Chris Cuomo and Nina Turner are alluding to, could you imagine that if in a courtroom, the judge would say, well, you're up on murder charges and we found you guilty, but you're black, so we have to let you go. I mean, the idea of that is absolutely ludicrous. That's not happening anywhere. And it's always the case on, I do these videos on Chris Cuomo's show. I do these videos on Abby Phillips' show on CNN, and the right-wingers that they get on there, whether it's Scott Jennings on CNN or Liz Wheeler here or Benny Johnson goes on Chris Cuomo's show, they're always so disingenuous. They're always presenting a narrative of something that goes completely against reality, completely against facts and statistics, and all based on just what they feel. And Nina Turner points out that, seemingly unlike Liz Wheeler, it shouldn't matter the color of the woman who was murdered or the color of the man who murdered her. That shouldn't matter. But do you think, let me know in the comments, if the woman who was killed had been a black woman from an African country instead of a white woman from Ukraine, would Liz Wheeler care? Would she be on TV talking about this? I would have to guess no. But let me know what you think in the comments about all of this. Who do you agree with on this topic? Do you agree with what Liz Wheeler had to say on Chris Cuomo's show? Do you agree with what Nina Turner had to say on Chris Cuomo's show? Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I'll see you in the next video.